Hey you, it's Kaiti Yoo. It's so great to be back.
This is the show about the people who create, amplify, and influence our culture and how they do it. Want to capture lightning in the bottle? Want your content to spread like wildfire? I'm Ben Kaplan, and let's break the internet. Welcome to Break the Internet. I'm chatting with Kaiti Yoo.
Thank you so much for having me.
What I love too is that before we were chatting here, I checked in your stats, and I remember like last time we chatted, whatever that was, I was like, 500,000 followers on YouTube. Now I check in, well, that went up a bunch. Okay. Now we're pushing close to 700,000 subscribers or on there. So that's great. And how did you get started in all this to begin with? Maybe, in content creation and creating viral content and even just finding your voice or knowing how to start.
It is crazy that I'm here. I never would have expected that I'm here. So if to go back to the very beginning, you might have heard the story before, but I will tell it again. And so fast forward to when I was a sophomore in college.
You're a student, you're at Brown University.
Yes.
What are you studying at this point, by the way?
I'm studying media and economics, right? Which, come to think of it now, it was a pretty nice setup for what I ended up doing, but I didn't know that at the time. And back then when I was at Brown, everyone is gunning for the top internships. Everyone's talking about going into consulting and finance. And so
is that super annoying? Is that annoying, honestly, or no? Or is it just, or do you feel like, at that point, do you feel like, oh man, I got to figure out my niche because all these people seem to have it figured out?
Yeah, I think there was just a lot of, if everyone else is going down this path, am I crazy? Am I like the one being left behind if I don't also follow this path? And so there was a lot of pressure to try to fit myself into a box that I deep in my soul knew that it was not going to fit. So I was almost getting ready to ditch all my hopes and dreams and just start applying for, jobs on Wall Street or in consulting, which nothing against those jobs. Like so many people are gifted for those, but I literally was not. I hate spreadsheets. I can't do math very well. So it was just like not aligned, but I was like gearing up to try to go into that industry.
Because there's momentum, everyone else is doing it. But then were you already like very active on social media? Did you have that in your background, even though you weren't like, I'm going to do this as like a profession, but, or no, or how did you like kind of turn it on?
I did love photography from like a very young age. And I also loved making videos, but I never shared it with anyone. I would just like, if I went on vacation, I would be naturally doing that. But then once the pandemic hit, all those internships that I was gunning for, they got canceled. I got 30 emails saying your internship is canceled. Thank you for applying. But like, LOL, you can't come. And so you would think that that would crush me, but it didn't. It actually was such a relief that I didn't have to go down this path that I didn't want to. And so that kind of pause was such a blessing in disguise. And when at first I tried to go viral on TikTok, because that was what everyone and their mother was doing back then.
But to get there, so basically it's pandemic, you can't go a lot of places, internship canceled. You're kind of like in your, I don't know, dorm room or apartment or whatever it is. And you're just like, I'm going to make stuff. I'm going to create stuff, and TikTok's where it's at. So I'm going to go do this on TikTok, or a little bit before the heyday of TikTok, but you thought like, I'm going to make short form content.
Right. Like it was when TikTok started really getting big. Like it was the golden age of TikTok. Everybody was on it. Everybody was trying to go viral because it was getting really easy to go viral on TikTok. So everybody thought that they could do it. Right. And I tried. I was like doing the renegade in my room. I was sweating. And I never blew up on TikTok. It was heartbreaking. I was crying. I was like, why can't I do this? Because everybody else seemed to be blowing up.
Well, and at this point, had you found the niche in kind of fashion and that yet? No. So this is just, you're just making content, like there's meme type stuff. You're dancing around doing what other people were doing at this point.
I was doing everything that everyone else was doing. I was just trying to hop on the trend. And it didn't work. So then my mom walked in on me crying in my bedroom one day, and she was like, why don't you try YouTube? And I was like, that's even harder. Like everyone knows that the only reason why I'm trying to do TikTok is because it's really easy to blow up right now.
You're very, very socially savvy mom. I don't know if mine would like suggest platforms and stuff like that. But like your mom,
I know.
does she create content? Is she on platforms and stuff like that?
So she tried to become a YouTuber before me. She was like a cooking YouTuber. She has a cooking channel. But like it never took off because I think she gave up too fast. Like she only did it for like 3 months and she was like, eh. And I was like, no, you have to do it for a year. You have to do it for a year. She didn't, but I still think there's potential there. But because she had all that equipment, I just started using that equipment. And I first started out doing like college vlogs, like a day in my life as a Brown student during the pandemic. But what really ended up taking off for me was fashion, which was crazy because the approach that I was having at that moment was throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. So I really wasn't being strategic. I was just like, okay, let's try a vlog. Let's try like a funny video. Let's try like this. And then I tried fashion.
And what video made you, when you tried fashion, do you remember your first video? What was it on? And what told you this was somehow different than all the other stuff you had tried? Was it just sheer number of, I don't know, likes or was it something else?
Yeah. So the first video that blew up was this dark academia lookbook. And at that time, like aesthetics were really coming into play. Like, oh, the dark academia aesthetic, the cottagecore aesthetic. I don't know if you know these words, but like fashion aesthetics. And so I specifically did a dark academia one and that blew up. It was like, I had less than 100 subscribers, but it got around like 30,000 views. So that was pretty huge at my size. And so I kept making those videos. And then there was like a really big blow up with the, what the college majors would wear if they were people. Like that was what took me from like 200 subscribers to 100,000 subscribers. It was crazy. Like
really? So it's actually is it just two pieces of content kind of responsible for that? And there was like lots of other stuff in between, or how much was it when you say, or was it like quality? Was it quantity? Was it just that to get to your first 100,000?
I think the moment a person blows up on YouTube or any other platform, it's the fact that there has been quality all along, but one video manages to catch on to the algorithm. And then when people come in through that door, they realize like, oh my gosh, there's actually such hidden gems here. And so that's why they hit subscribe.
Oh, and that's why you get the subscribers. Because if you're like a one-hit wonder, you have that, then like, okay, I don't see anything here. That's a cool video. I'm not going to subscribe. But this way you have like the base you lay and then one hits.
Yes, the base you lay and one hits. That's a really good way of putting it. So like there were a lot of videos that weren't seen until that one video brought all these people in. But then once they came in, they were like, oh my gosh, this is great.
Well, and how much time elapsed to get to that? Like how long you did it? I know you said you stick with it a year. How far along did you get? It's
a double-edged sword because it took me exactly 6 months to go from 0 to 100,000, which is like it's relatively fast. However, I think, and that can be viewed as like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, such a blessing. However, I do think that when one skyrockets to like fame that fast without like the foundation of like the toil over time, when things start going haywire, like your foundation's a little shakier. So while I'm very grateful that I grew that fast, I think later on in my career when things like weren't going as fast or I was regressing or something like that, like those losses kind of hit more hard because I hadn't experienced that like within the 6 months when I was first starting out.
I see. You just didn't have like the up and down, the ebb and flow. You think like, oh, every 6 months is going to be this, and this is just going to, yes. And like, and it's okay, which is not true. And then at what point then did you like decide I'm going to do fashion full time? Was it at the 6 month point? Like it's been driven by these videos, or I'm really going to focus on that, or when did that become apparent?
I mean, this is something that I honestly feel like I would change if I were to go back. But I think when I started to see that my audience and the algorithm loved my fashion videos, I got kind of addicted to the gratification and the what is it, the dynamic with the audience that happens when I upload a fashion video. And therefore I got married to only putting out well-performing videos. And so it's almost like I didn't make the decision to go into fashion. It was just like, well, this is what the audience likes and this is what I need to grow. So I'm going to keep doing it.
Okay. And you're observing it. And so you're saying, I want to do more of that. And then if you do something else or different, then you're like, oh, then I sort of take a step back and a hit. And so you just kind of over time got more focused.
Right. But I wouldn't do that. If I had a chance to do it again, I wouldn't do that, because I think that it kind of siloed me into a niche that I'm not sure if it's like my passion. Like I do like fashion, but I don't think that that's something that I'll be doing forever. And my dream is to start like a brand with like a fashion line. Like, so I think if I could go back, or if I could get advice to anybody, it would be to make sure to diversify and also be genuine to yourself and not just addicted to putting out well-performing videos.
I see. Well, and it's difficult because you have to put out things that people like. Otherwise, you might as well just make videos for yourself. Yet you have to like feed yourself too, especially if you're in this for the long haul, because there's going to be ups and downs, and that's what's kind of like, keep you interested and keep you going and make it interesting. What if you were not making fashion type videos? What else would you make?
Right. I think that's what I'm trying to figure out right now, because while I still will always have a space on my platform for fashion, I do think I'm kind of trying to expand and diversify at this moment. And what really just gets me going is just talking about what makes us as humans tick, like intimate connection, just the inner soul and like mental health. And also my faith is a huge part of my identity as well. And so I really want to talk more about those things, while also still incorporating the beauty of cinematography and art and fashion and good shots and good editing. So yeah, that is what I feel like I want to make content about.
I see. Got it. Well, it makes sense. And I want to go back to that. Let's just to finish the story, to get you to present day. You're growing, you hit 100,000 subscribers. And then tell me the point when, there were some big successes, but then you have like, videos that have over 5 million views, that you broke the internet. And I'm looking at this one now. And this one here, it's called, I look bad in everything I wear. Dude, no, you're not dressing for your body type.
Love it.
What makes that a special video that's different? And is that like kind of like the, one of your greatest hits?
Right. I do think numbers wise, that is definitely my greatest hit. And like the most viral video. I think in terms of, if you were to look at my short form videos, there are videos that do get higher views, but I still think, long form videos, to get that level of exposure, it's just so much more information and so much more of you. So yeah, I'm definitely very proud of that video.
And a lot more of building a relationship with you, right? Because if someone sits through that long, they're going to really get to know you, versus if they see 15 seconds fast, they might like it, but they don't really get to know you as well.
Right. I think the bread and butter of what made that video so great is that it speaks to an internal saying that I feel like most people have had at least once in their life. Like they've looked in the mirror and been like, why is this not vibing? Like, what am I doing wrong? Right? I think everyone has had that experience. And so to speak to some universal struggle and to offer like, this is exactly why, like the thing that you've been wondering about for so long, this is exactly why. I think people desire for that itch to be scratched. And so when you package it up and present the why in such a palatable and entertaining manner, it just really allows for the algorithm and the audience to be very happy. So I think that was what it was. They always say like, try to solve people's problems. And I think that solved, or at least gave people an idea of, oh, this is why I feel this way when I get dressed.
Well, and you put it even like in the title, like it's a long title. It has all of that, but you're like, oh, I get that right away, even from just like looking at the thumbnail.
Exactly.
And the title. You kind of get the the sort of emotion of it.
Yeah, I think that's a great example and point. And wow, I just have to give you praise for doing that, because I think it's amazing when you can mix the mundane or the light with something that is universal and so true. So that is what, like, that's how you break the internet, folks.
Okay, there you go. So to bring the story kind of, and then we'll get to present day and kind of how you're diversifying things now. But like from sort of these greatest hits, at what point did this become like, you're still a college student at Brown, but like, hey, I've got really something here. I can, popular phrase to use. I don't love the term, but people use it. Monetize this. I can do partnerships with brands. I can turn this into a business. I can pay for my college tuition with this. At what point does it sort of change for you?
Honestly, it took a while for that to even be an option for me. I think because I am a pretty risk averse person. And so even though I started this kind of sophomore year going into junior year, it wasn't until my senior year that I decided, like, okay, fine, I'm going to do this full time. For up until then, I was like, I don't know, maybe I should still get a traditional job and then do this as my side hustle. But then what made it kind of change for me is senior year, that was the first year back from the pandemic. So we were like fully in person, and to juggle classes with this career, it was like, oh my gosh, I can't give 100% to either of these. I have to kind of commit to one.
How much were you spending like daily to do this, that you had to fit in to like sort of keep up with things?
It was, at that time, it was literally like 40 to 50 hours a week. So a full-time job. It was a full-time job in addition to college classes. And I was like, I just don't think that I can do a job that like a traditional job that requires me to deliver 40 hours a week. And then also this. And once I kind of committed to, okay, fine, I'm going to do content full-time. It's almost like when you get rid of plan B, that's when plan A starts finally working. And so that was, I think my first brand trip was that senior year, and it was to Coachella. And I just saw the potential of what it could be. So I decided to, after college, like, not look for other jobs. Yeah. So that's like kind of how I went there.
And you graduated, I think, about a year ago. You've been a year out now. You live in New York City. And what has that, to kind of bring it to present day, what has that journey been like? I mean, I see, subscriber counts going up, you're making more content, but what has it been that been like? And even doing it, I guess, hard for anyone, leave college, go out there kind of first year, but then this year, you're making content at the same time. You're kind of, I'm guessing, working more on your own, though you have some team to support. What has that kind of been like?
It's been, I'm not going to lie, it's been hard. Much harder than I expected. So, but I'm grateful. I think it was a very necessary and humbling season for me. But right after college, I feel like I was on cloud nine. I was like, I can do anything I want to do. Like, look at everything I've accomplished. I was very, frankly, cocky, I think. And so once the stability of the environment of college was stripped away and I moved to this new city, I think some of the cracks in the foundation that I was talking about earlier were like that I couldn't see when I was first blowing up started to show, in terms of, I feel like I was really outsourcing a lot of my self-worth into how much content can I produce? How much money can I make? How esteemed can I become? And something kind of cracked, I think, in the winter after I graduated, and I got to a point where I couldn't create content even if I want to. And as somebody who always prided on herself on, like, no matter how you feel, you got to get up and you got to commit to this and you got to get it done. To suddenly not be able to do it, I think because it was burnout, was like so shocking for me. I was like, literally, who am I? And I ended up taking, I think, like a 4-month break from creating pretty much any long form content, because I literally couldn't. It was because creativity is our currency. And I felt like I was scraping the bottom of the bucket and I didn't have anything left. And it was at this time where my counselor / therapist also was like, this might be minor depression. And so I have also gotten help been getting professional help in terms of like medications and stuff like that. And I think that what I've learned through that season right after graduating was that, you know, although I have these gifts and these talents, I am not queen of the universe. I am not this invincible superhuman that can accomplish anything I want. I think because for me, again, my faith. And so I feel like I really just was reminded of how much I rely on God and how much like everything that I have is a gift. So now coming out of that, I think I view content and this whole industry and this platform very differently in terms of, you know, who am I impacting? Who is watching these videos and how can I make their day better with like my 10 minutes that I'm uploading onto the internet? And I never used to view it that way. Like it always before I would just be like, how can I get famous? How can I, you know, get the most clicks and how can I grow the fastest? But now I'm for the first time kind of peeling that back the curtain and being like, okay, but who are all these people that I'm trying to reach and what do they need? And what do I wish I could receive from somebody on the other end of the screen? And so it's a new perspective and I don't really know how to approach my work going forward with this new perspective. And I think you're kind of talking to me at a stage where I don't really know like where I'm going to go from here. But that's where I am today.
One of the things I think you get is a little bit of, because I felt this too, not exactly what your experience, but the highs and the lows in my own, because in my own career, I mean, there's moments and I'd, you know, written some books and other things and sort of business has gone really well. And the issue is that when you're focused on all these external validation, external metrics, you get these highs from it. But it like inevitably doesn't like last always. It's not like every day you wake up and says, Kaiti Yoo. I mean, maybe you do get some of this, but I didn't at least. You know, Kaiti Yoo, you're amazing. Great job. You know, you get some of that and then it goes away. You're like, well, am I no longer amazing? Like what happens? And the issue is just from a mental health perspective, particularly social media. And I think this is true no matter what level you're at, you know, whether you're hundreds of thousands or millions of followers or, you know, it's for your friends where to do well, you kind of have to be focused on external metrics, right? I think you never looked at who liked stuff, you know, then you probably would never crack the algorithm. You would never break the internet. You never find an audience. But then if you go overboard on that, if you do that and you kind of lose yourself in it, then you sort of, you know, I think you used the term before outsourced, but you sort of outsourced your mental health or outsourced to other people that you don't control, that have no idea what you're going through. And it's really hard to balance that. I've sort of felt, you know, and I very, very small level of the highs and lows for me, but like more compassion for like the child actor that struggles or like, you know, oh man, Britney Spears is going through a tough time, you know, a little bit more because you're like, wow, when you're at those kind of highs, what must that feel like for lows? And how do you balance that? No one gives you a course for like content creators and influencers are blowing up. I'm like, I don't think how to manage your mental health.
Exactly. Because this industry is so young, I think we're definitely figuring it out as we go. But I'm really happy with how many more people in, you know, the virality industry are talking about, you know, the burnout that comes from those highs and lows. So it definitely is an issue that people are much more aware of now. And that's all I can be grateful for at the end of the day.
Well, and you made the decision to document this and actually post about it. And you have a video called 3 Months of Depression Documented. What went into that? Did you know you were, I mean, you sort of described it as like, I can't create content for 4 months and ultimately you created content about it. Was that difficult? How did you come to that decision? Where does that come from that you're going to actually post a video about this?
It was so crazy because the outcome of that video was so different than what I expected. I kind of filmed that and uploaded that as kind of an explanation for this is why I haven't been uploading for like the last 3-4 months. This is why. That was kind of the way that I was using that. But then the reception of that video was the very teaching lesson that I was talking about of like, oh, I have to like be conscious of the souls who are watching this because it just resonated so deeply with so many people in a way that I literally was just like, I'm suffering. This is what I've been doing for the last 3 months.
Okay, so you didn't have, because you were just talking a second about the insight about like, hey, like I want to make a difference in people's lives, even if I don't have a million views of this. If I have like one view of someone and it makes a tremendous difference, and maybe it's worthwhile. It was a shift in perspective. But were you at that insight at this point yet, or was this kind of on the journey to that?
I think this was still on the journey because I was like, I have no idea who's going to watch this. Like I haven't uploaded in like 3 months. So like the algorithm definitely does not like me either. So I was like, this video might very much do really badly, you know? And so I was just uploading it to upload it because at this time it was so hard for me to film or edit. And so the only way that I could do those things if I was just able to talk about what I was going through. And so it was a very low lift in terms of there was no like creative direction or strategic planning that went into it. It was just.
Those of you who haven't seen some of Kaiti's videos, they're kind of the hallmark is they're very well produced. You're quite a good video editor. You have some skills, and I know we've talked in the past about how that was one of the things that made your stuff stand out was that it's like well done, high quality. This one, you're like, you're not going to do the depression documented video with like, CGI effects.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yes. Yeah.
No.
You're going to tell what you need to tell.
Exactly. It was very raw. And when I saw how many people just like needed to hear or see that video, even though it didn't tie anything up in a loose end, like there's not a happy ending to that video. It's just like, this is how I'm feeling. That was the point where I kind of realized, what I say matters and there are people that are hearing it. So let's give them substance. But yeah, that video was like, pretty recent. And so I think I'm still trying to figure out, how to navigate creating content more regularly going forward to make sure that I don't hit burnout again, to make sure that I don't run out of creative juices again. Like it's all, I don't have the answers. I am still very lost.
Here's one thing from my experience and I don't know you can tell me if in like the creator community, you feel like you have this at all, but I've learned over time that like, you don't have to solve things on your own. There's like, you don't have to be like, to use your phrase, like, Kaiti Yoo, superwoman, you're just going to like conquer this. And it sounds like, you have other things you talked about, getting some therapy, some other things like that. But it's also like peers and other things, and people have gone through it before, and people who've, being able to talk to someone else who had like the 5 million blow up video, and then they had some maybe downtimes and all of that. And that's like the hardest thing, I think, because sometimes when you're going through, all of us, we're going through struggles, it feels like, you're alone, right? It feels like that. But do you feel like you have others to kind of share the burden with, or is that difficult because you kind of did something that was separate from your peer group at Brown? And maybe other people were doing that, but I don't think that many. Do you have that like support network?
I think I'm very grateful for the support that I do have in my life in terms of close friends. I think that an area that I do need to get better at, though, is, talking to people who have gone before me in this industry, like be it entertainment or content creation, and talk to them. I think that's something that I haven't done as much of, just being like, have you ever gone through this struggle before? Like, please help me. So this is definitely a good reminder to reach out and try to have those conversations because, you're right. It does feel like you're alone, but that's literally a lie. That's a lie.
I've learned over time, I'm a bit older than you. So, for what it's worth, like I have a few more like no, not so much wisdom, just like more years of mistakes and lessons. That's all. But is that, things are temporary. No matter how good they are, no matter how bad they seem, time changes things. So you just got to kind of hang in there, right? Like it's never as bad as you think it is. And actually it's never as good as you think it is either. And you just got to hang in there. And it's not like you're stuck and you'll never get out of it. Just like hang on. It will be okay. If you can have some more support networks and friends, it will be okay. Just hang on.
Exactly. Thank you so much for saying that. And I very much agree. Like that's so crazy that you said that, because I feel like I've been realizing that of like every negative feeling is temporary. Like every great, amazing experience is temporary. And that just makes every moment of life, I want to hold on to it more. And so I know that one day I'll look back on this season of my life and be like, yes, learned so much, but like it's past now. So I really appreciate you saying that. It means a lot.
Let's maybe, to finish up, let's pay it forward a little bit in terms of other people listening to this. There's people listening to this show who, are content creators now that they haven't, reached the, maybe they're trying to get to the 100,000 subscribers. Maybe they're trying to get to like the million plus video. There might be people listening who are really early on, just listening and, thinking like, hey, I want to do things. I think I could do this, or there are other people saying like, I'm there, I want to break the internet. Whatever it is, what would you, from like hindsight and kind of this journey you've on and everything you've learned now? I mean, you mentioned a couple of things that you do differently, maybe like not pigeonholing content, but how would you approach it differently for like, Kaiti Yoo, the new Kaiti Yoo who's in their apartment or dorm room thinking about doing this? What advice would you do to kind of set up maybe the foundation given everything you've learned?
There's so many things I'd want to say. One thing that I like really, somebody like one of my favorite content creators who's like now a colleague, your mom, Ashley, her and I were giving like a talk at Harvard together, and she said this as like advice, and I was like, that is so good and so good. And what she said, she was like, if you want to be a content creator and you want to go viral or like break the internet, you have to be okay with being cringe. Like accept that you will be cringe.
And by that you mean from other people or yourself, or like what do you mean by like something that you're like cringe?
I think everyone, because like when you're first trying to break the internet or get out there or go viral, you are going to stick out and you are going to be doing stuff that people around you are not doing. And so there might be judgment from the people who are watching you. There might be judgment from yourself of like, oh, why am I doing this? Like, what if I fail? That's going to be so embarrassing. Accept that is normal. And that is what every single big person or accomplished or viral or famous person has gone through to get to where they are. Like that's just an inevitable step of the process. And the more that you can just be like owning it and stepping into, yeah, this is what I'm doing and I'm going to do it, even though you think that I'm cringe, it's just going to save you a lot of resistance and hardship in terms of going down that path. So just accept that it's going to be a little cringy. It might be a little awkward, but like again, it's like you're not alone. Every single person that has gone before you has gone through this. I think that's like my biggest advice, like biggest motif.
Well, and I have one experience that relates to that. And I don't know, have you ever had to learn like partner dancing? Have you ever done like a salsa class or like a ballroom dancing class? I have done this. Well, here's and I don't know if you can associate with this. I think it's a little bit slightly more pressure on just like the lead. Usually that's the dude, just because you're like, you have to call out these moves. And I remember learning salsa dancing, and you got to the class, and the class, everyone's learning the moves together. And then, so it's like, if I like hold up my hand and you're following me, you're going to spin because the teacher taught it. And then I remember we went to a club for the first time. I was learning salsa dancing. We went to the club for the first time where no one was in the class, no one else stuff. And like, I remember dancing with someone for the first time. And like, I held up my hand and like, she didn't turn and she didn't move. And I stepped on her feet, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm like apologizing. I like later learned that's like not really a good quality of lead. I got a dance lead is like, to say you're sorry, like constantly, like it's not really like attractive quality or something like that. But like, I'm apologizing and nothing is going right. And I'm like, oh my God. It's like, but in the class, you're supposed to spin. Why did this happen? And I was like, literally, I think it was like, will the salsa song never end? My God, it's like, this cannot be good for, I'm just like waiting. And it was so horrible. It was cringeworthy. And I went back and I saw people in my class, people were like kind of laughing a little bit. They could tell like we weren't doing well. And I went back, and I remember this because I went back to my instructor, and she was like, how'd it go? I was like, I don't know. It was a little rough. It was rough. And I asked her, and I remember I asked her, I said, well, how long is it going to take me
right.
to be good? Like that was that site. And she's like, oh, for a lead, usually it takes a minimum of 6 months. 6 months. This is my first time in cloud. I was like, okay, 6 months. And so this gets back to what you were saying about cringe. Like, God, can I do this for 6 months? That was so awful. Can I do this? And then I asked her, I said, well, how many times do I have to dance a week? And she's like, 3 times a week for 6 months. Okay. And I said, how many times, should I be dancing each time I go? She's like, do 5 dances. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, 3 times a week times 5, that's 15, 6 months. That's 90 dances that I need to do. 90 cringe-worthy moments to be like decent. I remember thinking to myself, I was asking that, and I'm kind of like a mathematical person, so that's why I'm like doing the numbers here, right? Like other people aren't doing like, math in the mental math in the salsa club, but I'm doing it. And I remember I was like, okay, either I'm not coming back to salsa class or I've got to get through 90 dances. And at that moment, I was like, okay, who's number 2? Mm-hmm. Went and asked someone else. It was bad. And I was able to compress those 90 dances in about like 3 months. And that's where I got to a little bit more comfortable. So that's, I'm sorry, a long-winded story, but that's like accepting the cringe, getting through it, and just knowing there's something else on the other end. And that's kind of thing, like everything's temporary. You just got to get through it.
Wow. Like that is, Ben, you have such a gift for like taking your own anecdotes and just tying it into the conversation. Like that was such a wonderful story. And I love dance. So I love this metaphor even more, but I so agree. I so agree. You have to get your reps in. Like that's just the nature of how anything on this earth works. And so, yeah, that's hilarious. Do you still salsa dance now?
From time to time, I do. I need to. Now I have a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. So it's more like, let's get them to walk around. So I'm often salsa dancing with kids, or my wife and our kids. We're all trying to do it together. But it's a good lesson for a lot of things. So you kind of got to be in the moment, and you learn how to, be cognizant of other people and all that. So I hope my daughters learn how to dance as well. Is there anything else that, just to wrap up, anything else that, we've talked about, the personal impact. We've talked about how you would go back. Is there anything else that you would say sort of like where the state of the industry is now and kind of where it's headed and what you see and what do you think? I mean, are we all like, is the golden age of this? We talk about the golden age of TikTok. Is the golden age of this, has it happened? Is it in the future? There's AI content coming. What do you think, just maybe to wrap up overall, for just your perspective on this, maybe industry and where it's headed?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. Obviously no one can predict the future, but I have been noticing the one observation I've been seeing is that for a really long time, this era of relatability has been huge. Like the raw content, like, no, we don't want to see your like posed photos. We don't want to see like this idealistic life. Like I want to see the raw.
Like authentic, like authenticity.
Yes. That has been huge for like a very long time. I see that the audience's needs and wants are kind of going back to like the curated and the cinematic. And specifically an example of that is the person who kind of kickstarted the era of authenticity and rawness on YouTube, at least, was Emma Chamberlain with her like, she would just burp on camera, fart on camera. It was just like no filter. Yeah. And so that ushered in like this new era of relatability, which is what I was still used to when I was coming to fame. And now I see that, people who are more cinematic or just create more of a story arc in an intentional way in terms of their YouTube videos are now, like blowing up. And so I kind of am just noticing that, it goes back to your saying of everything is temporary. And so I do see a trend tipping back to like the curated and the beautiful right now. And I'm excited to see how we reinvent that, especially because TikTok is here now. So like we're used to shorter, faster content. And how are we going to mix that with cinematography and like film like settings and stuff like that? And so, yeah, I think knowing how to constantly reinvent yourself by using all the data points that you've collected by what's already big, because before we didn't have TikTok and now we do have TikTok. So how do we incorporate like TikTok style editing with this new audience's taste for like the more cinematic? I am being repetitive, but I'm just noticing that is coming back and something to be paid attention to. And even for me, I'm starting to do more research into how I can tap more into that.
Well, no, and I was just gonna, before you get to AI, I was just gonna comment. I mean, I think it's this challenge of, you know, you kind of have to do what other people are doing, but if you're doing what everyone else is doing, then you're kind of going to get left behind too. So you've got to be constant. And that's why the reinvention, and this is like a dated reference. I don't know if people, maybe people these days don't know, but like Madonna was famous for that, right? She had like a new sound, a new look, a new thing. And that's why she was like, you know, relevant for like 50 years or something like that. So yeah, so you kind of have to do that, but you have to be a leader and a follower at the same time. And you know, and it's weird and it's hard, but the other thing is, I mean, just to your point, and then I'll let you comment on AI about kind of being true to yourself and finding your voice, and also having an audience, but also having like things worthy of saying that you want to say to your audience, is that kind of becomes your North Star too, because things will ebb and flow, techniques will change, platforms will, change. All those people were optimizing for Vine. They're not doing that now, right? So all of that will change, but like yourself can be the through current, but it has to evolve and you have to be true to yourself. Otherwise, very hard to sustain. But you were going to say AI and where you think that's playing into like, do we even need content creators anymore? Because it's like, I don't know, Mr. AI is going to do it for us.
I mean, okay, so before I get to AI, I want to say one last thing that was sparked by like what you just said about I was watching an interview with Hassan Minhaj, who's like a comedian. He's huge and he got big on YouTube, but now he's like just like a comedian and he has like Netflix shows and whatever. And he was like, there's a difference between creating for an algorithm and creating for art. And creating for art is when you have something to say. And it doesn't matter what medium you're going to use, you're going to say it. It doesn't matter if nobody's going to watch it. You need to get it out. Versus creating for the algorithm is you see a demand and you will yourself to say something to meet that demand. And that was just such a revolutionary thing for me, because I think for a long time I was just creating for the algorithm. And now I'm kind of pivoting to creating for art in addition to the algorithm. And so that is another huge thing that you're right. Like it needs to be a North Star for anyone trying to break into the industry. And I'm in the process of figuring out what that is for me. But yeah, that is the distinction I wanted to definitely make. And then in terms of AI, I don't know if I have anything significant to say, honestly. It's just, I don't really ever see it replacing humans. But I'm interested to see how it can aid humans, because I already see like AI, people like making AI come up with the best titles and stuff.
Like write the video script as a first draft, and then you edit it and put Kaiti Yoo on it. It's not in the original version, but like maybe it could speed it up.
Yeah, I'm hesitant, scared, excited about those developments, but I'm not worried, if that makes sense.
Sure. Well, and I'll give you one more little mini story, and back to your point about trying to kind of be sustained and fulfilled by something you want to say, which is, I have a lot of experience talking to entrepreneurs and people who start businesses, and there's a certain kind of person who's an entrepreneur that comes in and is like, where's their market opportunity? There's a industry that's not being serviced. It's a problem. I can see it. I'm starting a business. And it actually is a good opportunity because they did all their research, but it's like, honestly, they don't care about this business. They have no connection to this business. They just see it's pure, like, I see a business, I want to do it. And some people can be successful at that. But the issue is when times get tough, when things aren't going so well, usually those are the first people to like drop out. Why? Because they're not passionate about it. It's not something else. It's like it was a business opportunity. Versus some other folks may take something that is actually not as clear a business opportunity, but they are passionate about it. They believe in about it. Maybe it doesn't quite get the rocket fuel they get initially, but downtimes they sustain. They push through because it's something they care about. So a lot of times, and maybe the final comment is like, I think, and this is true, and I think, I mean, you're going to Brown, you're following the achiever category, Kaiti. That's how it is. But a lot of achiever types too, it's like, you want to climb the ladder, you want to climb the ladder, you want to climb the ladder, but like, is the ladder up against the right wall? And if it's not, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Lots of us, again, we think it's the right wall. We have to change walls. So don't, if you're listening and you don't have the right wall figured out, that's okay. Not supposed to have it figured out, and it's supposed to change in your life. But sometimes we just got to do that, because that also is what sustains us when, you trip on a step and you do this, but you're climbing the right wall, you're going to get there. And if you don't have that, then it makes things a lot harder, even if it's a great business opportunity, even if there's a great content niche that you can fill. That's important.
Oof. I really need to hear that. The ladder against the right wall. That is such a good metaphor.
That was sort of me, but that was also sort of Stephen Covey as well. So I'll credit Stephen Covey for the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of the things is related to that. So there's that. But Kaiti Yoo, one, thank you so much for joining us on Break the Internet. 2, you have so many amazing gifts, and I totally appreciate you being kind of like honest and transparent with like where you are now, trials and tribulations, successes, all of that. And I truly think that, what you've done so far has been remarkable. And there's a way to tie this all together and connect it with your purpose and your faith and what you want to do. And maybe it's your full-time job, maybe it's not your full-time job, everything else, but all of this, I truly believe, was like for a purpose, for a reason. And I'm so excited to see what's next for you. And you don't have to figure it all now, and you don't have to do it on your own. And I appreciate you being honest about that, because I think that's inspiring for other people to know that, hey, sometimes people look perfect on YouTube, and it's probably not the case, and we're all just humans trying to get better and trying to hang on.
Yes. Thank you so much. That means the world. And I have been so poured into with wisdom from you. You're somebody that I admire so much. I mean, your heart and your ability to just bounce off of another person's story is, it's amazing, and it is a testament to why you are in the place that you are. So thank you so much.
This was brought to you by Top Thought Leader. Find out more at topthoughtleader.com.